Butternut squash is one of my favorite squashes to can just because it has that extra element of sweet and nuttiness to it that I really appreciate. To prepare the squash, I start by cutting off the ends. I then cut my butternut squash in half lengthwise. And then I'll hollow out my squash. I not only want to get all the seeds out, but I want to get everything that's stringy off of the edges, make sure it's nice and clean. I actually save the seeds because I like to use them in the garden, especially if I have a really good, nice size one like this. That's a good one to save the seed from. My next step is to peel the outside. I can do that with a knife, and I've done it before, but by far my favorite is to do it with a peeler, especially this Cutco peeler. I feel like it's strong enough that it can actually cut through this peel. Probably the hardest part is at this transition where all of a sudden there's this curve and it's a little bit hard to get that last piece out. Now I'll cut my squash into 1-inch cubes. Now I'll place my pumpkin chunks in boiling water for 2 minutes. Now I'll pull it out of the water, draining it as I do. You could use this cooking water to can it in, but if you use fresh water, it's actually much more clear. Now I'll fill up my quart-sized jars to 1 inch of headspace. Headspace is the space from the top of the food to the top of the jar. Now I'll place 1 teaspoon of salt in each of my quart jars. And I'll fill the jars up to 1 inch of headspace with my hot water. I'll then use a wooden chopstick to debubble my jars. This just releases any trapped air bubbles. I usually run it right along the edges of the jar. I wouldn't want to do this with anything that was metal because it could scratch the jars. I then double check the headspace of my jars and they all look good, so I don't need to add any more water. Now I'll place my lids and rings on until they're fingertip tight. I'm using Superb canning lids today, which are actually my favorites because they have this blue squishy seal that seals for up to 36 months, as opposed to the 18 months that my old lids used to. I have a link as well as a 20% off discount code in my description below. I'll process these in my pressure canner for 90 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure. If I was above 2,000 feet in elevation, then I would need to adjust my pressure. To prepare my pressure canner, I'll add 3 quarts of hot water. Then I'll place in my jars, and I'll lock on my lid. Now I'll place this on the stove on high heat until it begins to steam out of the vent, and I'll allow it to vent for 10 minutes. Now that it's vented for 10 minutes, I'll place my weight over the vent so that the pressure can start to climb. At this point, I want to watch it, and as soon as it hits that 11 pounds of pressure, that's when I'll set my 90-minute timer. And if at any point during the canning process it drops below 11 pounds of pressure, then I will need to restart that timer. So it's really important that I keep it above that. Usually I shoot for 1 or 2 degrees above what my goal is, and that's just because I don't want it too high or it causes some leakage, but if it goes low, then I have to restart things, and I definitely don't want to do that. Now that the timer's gone off, I'll turn off the heat and allow the pressure to drop naturally. I don't want to do anything to get it to go down faster. I don't want to put it in water, mess with the weight, nothing. Just let the pressure come down on its own. Now that the pressure indicator is down and the dial is at 0, I'll remove the weight, and that's a good idea because if there's any residual pressure, it would come out at that point. Then I unlock my lid and I lift it off away from me. And that's just so that if there's any steam that it doesn't go in my face. Now I'll allow this to cool for 10 minutes. Now I remove the jars and place them on a heat-resistant surface about 1 to 2 inches apart so that they can cool down quickly. I'll leave them there for 24 hours so that they can get a good seal. I know that they have a good seal if the center of the lid has depressed down. If it has, then I'll remove the rings, wash off the outside with hot soapy water, and store them in a cool, dry, dark location like my pantry and use them in the next 1 to 3 years. If any of them didn't seal, I would place them in the refrigerator and use them right away.